welcome back. This is the second portion of our video series of the using to calculate statistics using the HP 10B2 or 10B2 plus calculator. And this go around, okay, we're going to discuss calculate the variance and standard deviation with these points. So what I'm going to do is, okay, where I left off, we did the mean. So you can't calculate variance without the mean. So now that we have the mean, there's a quick way of doing it using your calculator. And you already have your data points. We already know what the mean is, right? So like from the last video, I showed you guys how to get the mean. So you, like I say, hit the orange key, you hit the 7 key on your calculator, and it gives you the mean. So we have the mean here. So what we got to do now is get the variance, and the variance is it's pretty simple. So to get the variance, first let me hit clear that out. The formula, if you want to keep up and follow, you go to page 142 in the book Statistics for Managers Using Microsoft Excel 7th edition by David Levine, David Stephen, and Catherine Zagabat. And that's the 7th edition of it. It's the global edition. So and what I'm doing is I'm going over standard deviation on page 142 using the same data of the time and day data that we used in the last video to calculate the statistical mean. So standard deviation, the variance, because you have to calculate variance in order to get the standard deviation. So once you have the variance is the standard deviation is just the square root of the variance. Like I said, we're going to do standard deviation. I'm going to show you how to do that, and then I'm going to show you how to reverse it so you can get the variance. Because I'm giving these scenarios for people, especially who has to learn how to use a calculator for examination purposes. So if you look at page 142, you'll see the formula is s squared equals, the s squared equals the sum of x, the variable of x, minus the mean squared, divided by the number of data points minus 1. So the quick way to calculate that, I'm going to show you here. You see the 8 key right here? You can see the 8 key. That S right here means the standard deviation of X, right? So if you want to get for these data points, it's already still in memory. So we know it's still in memory. If you just want to check if it's still in memory, you can say how many data points do I have in there. You hit the blue key, then you hit the N. It tells you that it's 10 data points, as you see here. It's day 1 through 10, and that represents the data points, right? So, okay, now that we got that, let's hit the clear button. Okay, so we're going to clear that out. And how you get the standard deviation of those data points? You see this S right here over the 8, so we're going to hit that. You're going to hit standard deviation. It gives me the standard deviation, right? So the variance, if you want to get the variance, I know it's kind of backwards. I know you guys are used to getting the variance first, and then you do the square root of the variance in order to get the standard deviation. But we're gonna do it. I'm gonna show you a faster way of doing it, because actually on the calculator there's no calculation for variance, right, on the calculator, but there is a calculation for standard deviation. which, if you know, if you square the standard deviation, it'll give you the variance, because the variance is what? It's the square root of the variance. So if you square this, so here's the square key right here, as you can see, the plus key on your calculator, you see x squared. So that's you square it. So you take that amount, that's with standard deviation. You hit the orange key, and then you hit the plus key to square it. So that's going to be your variance calculation. And you're probably saying, well, how did you figure that out? How did you figure out if that's correct? So what I want to do is, if you go to page 144 in the statistics books, the statistics for managers using Microsoft Excel, go to page 144, you're going to see table 3.1. So if you look at down below the table, you're going to see the calculations, and you're going to see that's the variance that I calculated. You see, it comes up to 45.82. So it's pretty neat, right? So how to do it faster. But if you want to check to make sure the variance is correct, you can reverse engineer this, right? And what I mean by reverse engineer this, okay, you got the variance. So what is the variance, right? So we know that the formula, as you can see on page 144, it's the sum of it's the sum squared of all the data points minus the it's 10 minus 1, meaning the number of data points. So in order to do that, so I would multiply this number by 9, right? So if I take that number and I say multiply by 9, it's going to give me, as you see on page 144, you're going to see it gives me it's correct. It's 412.4, which I have here. 412.4. So if you take this, before I multiplied it by 9, now I'm going to divide it by 9. So to make sure that you see that I'm correct. So if you take that 412, then you hit divided by 9, that equals 45.82, which is your variance. So now you have the variance. Then you do what? You square root it. So you hit the orange key, hit the square root, and then that's your standard deviation. And that's it. So in my next video, I'm going to show you how to calculate the coefficient of variation for the same data set.